Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today with a video about Dragon Ball Project Z. As a lot of you know, I am obsessed with Dragon Ball. I mean, for God's sakes, I have the card game sitting right here. I collect all these cards, I play all the games. Dragon Ball FighterZ last year was one of my most played games with like 130 plus hours on it. I'm obsessed, okay? So naturally, the announcement of an open world action RPG from Dragon Ball has me ridiculously stoked. So I'm going to be going through 5 reasons why I'm really pumped for this game, and I'd love to hear from all of you in the comments down below. Also, I want to disclose that I'm not going to be using a lot of the trailer footage in this video today because Namco has historically been weird with that kind of stuff, and I've received copyright claims from them in the past when using their trailer footage. So you're really just going to see screenshot and gameplay from other Dragon Ball titles. Anyway, let's get started with number 1, which is the developer behind this game. It's CyberConnect 2. They're responsible for the Ultimate Ninja Storm games alongside the Dot Hack series. Dot Hack is in particular quite underrated and underdiscussed by gamers. It's a JRPG series and less about the combat and more about featuring a game that has excellent world building and a very interesting premise. It's also been shown in the past with Ultimate Ninja Storm 2 and 3, in my opinion, that CyberConnect 2 can tell a story or retell a older story in a very exciting fashion while condensing and getting rid of some of the filler that comes with these shows. Plus, they did a good job when it came to making a fighting game, in my opinion. When it came to the Ultimate Ninja games, I wasn't very good at them. They're just not my bread and butter personally. But what is there is a high action, exciting type of fighter, and I don't think we're really going to be getting that when it comes to Dragon Ball Project Z. Because that brings me to point number 2, which is the open world aspect. That has me excited as a Dragon Ball fan who's watched the show, is obsessed with the movies, loves everything about it. Being able to actually explore the world, not just little crevices here and there like we've seen in Xenoverse 2 where the hub world was little aspects of famous Dragon Ball places. Like, this is going to be an open world Dragon Ball game. Since it's going to be open world, I don't imagine it's going to have the focus of a fighter, kind of like the Ultimate Ninja Storm series. I personally imagine gameplay is going to be a little bit similar, like the Legacy of Goku series. We're going to be running around fighting mob enemies, leveling up, increasing attributes, decking out our character with accessories and different outfits. That's the type of stuff that I really like. And we've seen Namco really shift their games towards a lot of customization. We're seeing in Jump Force there's customization. We saw in Tekken 7 there was a lot of customization. On top of that, Soul Calibur 6 had customization. There is a lot of focus on that in their games. I would be surprised if Project Z didn't have some form of customization when it came to cosmetics at the very least. I digress though. The open world aspect is what has me most excited about this game. It's a game that I think I can argue most Dragon Ball fans have wanted their entire lives. To experience what it's like to be a part of the Dragon Ball worlds. We've had games in the past that have featured overworlds where we can fly from mission to mission, and it really kind of brought you into the story a little bit more, but there was never anything to do inside those overworlds. It was literally just a space to place missions and I guess bring a sense of connectivity between the mission to mission action. So I really like that, but now knowing that we're actually going to be able to get in there, pumped. Number 3, which I kind of went on about in the last point, this is the best part about these list videos, is you just don't really have a lot of structure to them, but it's the fact that it's an action RPG. Now, I think that some RPGs in the Dragon Ball series are quite underrated. Most notably is Dragon Ball Fusions. I absolutely adore that game because you can make the most wacky fusions you could ever create in your head, and they're likely feasible in that game. I'm talking like you could fuse Nappa and Raditz and make like Naditz, something along those lines. It's really an awesome game, and so that's also an RPG, but that's more on the strategic side of things. So I'm curious to see how an action RPG goes. Is it going to be a simple beat 'em up? Are we going to be able to call in teammates? Are we going to have teammates help us? How's the fighting going to be? I thought that this trailer was oddly closed off, where we saw a lot of recreations of famous scenes from the show in this trailer, but at the end was only the little bit of snippets of actual, I guess, gameplay we could really say that we saw. I'm not expecting a humongous level of depth, maybe something along the lines of an attack button, a key blast button, a hotkey to use all of our special abilities, like for example, since we're playing as Goku, Kaioken, Kamehameha, the list goes on, a guarding button. I don't think it's going to be super deep, but I do imagine it's going to be flashy, it's going to be fun, and if we can call in assists from teammates and chain together combos, that'll be awesome too. Number 4, this one I don't know how many people can relate to, but we should be excited for the new gals and guys joining joining the Dragon Ball series. This is a great starting point, and this was brought to my attention when a viewer had contacted me on Twitter asking me about where they should get started with the Dragon Ball series, and I thought to myself, this game is perfect for that. Dragon Ball is really reaching a peak in fan love and attention because of the release of Fighters, the tournament surrounding that, more DLC coming to Fighters, now Project Z. We also have Super Broly. I mean, Dragon Ball is a dominant force, and more people want to get involved. But naturally, there's Dragon Ball Z, then you have Super, then you have the movie. There's a lot to get involved in. So what better to do from Namco Bandai than to have a game come out that retells the original Dragon Ball Z story? That may not excite all, because a lot of people really liked how Fighters had an original story, and also Xenoverse 1 and 2 took the original missions from the Dragon Ball Z universe and flipped them on their head a bit so that it wasn't the same old thing we've experienced before. And while that may be familiar, it's good for newcoming fans, but it also brings me to point 5, which is the possibilities. Currently, at this point in time, we don't know a lot about Project Z, but I thought to myself, if it's an RPG, imagine if there was some form of minor, mind you, choice and consequence in this game where certain paths could go a bit differently based on how we approach the situation. Like I said, the possibilities of combat. How's that going to be handled? And also, I imagine if it's an open world game, there is going to be character interaction, there's going to be dialogue, and if so, will there be some form of minor dialogue system? At the end of the day, Dragon Ball is about the action, it's about the fighting, so I imagine that to be on the forefront, and I don't think it's going to be this super deep RPG with choice and consequence and tons of replayability. I'd love to be wrong about that, but that's personally not where my expectations are. But the thought of this style of game coming out nowadays with modern tech, there are some exciting possibilities. The only thing that does worry me is that I know Namco is currently in a deal where every single year they have to get out a Dragon Ball game, so it can be hit or miss. You can get a Xenoverse or you can get a Dragon Ball Fighters, which I personally find to be pretty good Dragon Ball games. Xenoverse 2, a little bit less than, just because in my opinion, as someone who played a ton of Xenoverse 1 and then went into 2, no DLC mind you, I found myself pretty much playing the same game over again when it came to Xenoverse 2. Then there's also games you could get from this deal along the lines of Battle of Z. So there is that potential that it's not that great of a game, even though Dragon Ball is running on a high now. But I think Namco knows the position they're in. They should invest a lot of resources in this project because Dragon Ball is at a peak right now. It's only continuing to grow, and they should really just put their money right there and maximize what they can off the Dragon Ball series, in my honest opinion. But those are just 5 reasons why I'm really excited for this game. I'm sure more will be added to the list as we get more details. We know for sure it's coming out this year due to that deal I did just mention, but right now it seems like they're probably keeping their cards close to their chest. They wanted a big announcement outside of the Fighters DLC at the Dragon Ball World Tour, and this was it. But I feel like when it comes to gameplay and details, it's probably going to be till E3 that we see more, because Namco has gradually built into one of the bigger publishers in our industry, and by that I mean that they're always putting out a couple of big titles every single year that are at least on my radar constantly. I know not everyone's obsessed with anime and JRPGs, but when it comes to that type of stuff, I mean, they're putting out the bee's knees when it comes to anime games. So I'm really excited to see more about Project Z. I'd love to hear from all of you in the comments down below if you're excited about it. If so, what has you pumped? What ideas that we've talked about? What premise? Fire away in the comments down below. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. Those links are in the description down below, along with my Patreon. Do consider supporting that, as it fuels all the content I create here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.